Welcome to our devices track, week 3. Super excited about this. We are definitely focusing on devices this week. It's all devices all the time. If this is your first time joining us this week, welcome. It's great to have you here. My name is Sarah. I'm going to be your host this week. And if this is a returning session for you, welcome back. It's great to have you with us. We are super glad to see you in the audience this week. We are going to get started today with an amazing speaker, super energetic speaker, who is going to talk to us all about hybrid meeting trends and the future of hybrid work. And we'll round things out today with just some talk about sort of the devices that are out there and that are available to you. So the device solutions that are out there in the environment that you can take advantage of. Tomorrow, we've got another great set of speakers lined up to talk about putting hands to keyboards and actually deploying those devices. So step-by-step, how to deploy devices. And then on Thursday, another couple of great speakers who are in the lineup to talk about monitoring and managing those devices once they're out in your environment. So once they're out in the wild, and you can care for those once they're operationalized. So hope you are able to join us for any and all of those sessions as your schedules allow. But like I've always said, we are recording all of these sessions and they are posted out to our Superheroes YouTube channel. If you have not hit that channel, it's very easy to access, and you can get to it by just simply clicking on this link that you see right here. All of our recordings are out there already that we've had, and then any that will happen this week will also be posted out there. So like I said, if you can't join us for any of the sessions that we have for the rest of this week, you're welcome to go out there and hit the site and check out those. Boy, I'm having trouble today. Get those recordings, and we'd love to have you listen to those and even share them within your own organization as well. So that's an option. While we're on this page, I do want to talk about the Superheroes community. If you would like to join the community, we would love to have you. This is somewhere where you can, post questions and talk to others who are interested in the same topics as you. If you want to ask questions about Teams Phone, Teams devices, or modern work in general, this is the place for you. This is definitely where you can come and have conversations. This is a Yammer-based community. So if you would like to join, if you haven't already, you can submit that consent form. Microsoft values your privacy very much, and so we take that very seriously. So you can start by submitting the consent form. After a couple of days, you should be able to access that Yammer community by hitting this link right here. And once you're out here, you can access all of the slides that we have shared already and that we will be sharing for the rest of this week just by coming out to the Files tab. And then you can just search for the Converged Communications Customer Hub folder. And then we have our little tiny April wave out here. And that's where you'll find all of our decks that we're presenting throughout this wave. So if you're interested in that information, that's where that'll all be stored. If you are having trouble accessing this Superheroes community, I know we've had a couple of people express some difficulty, which we apologize for. We are working through that. If you are continuing to have problems with that, my email address is right here. So I would love for you to just reach out to me directly, send me a screenshot of the error that you happen to be getting, and we will help you work through that directly. So please feel free to reach out to me, and we'll do our best to get that resolved for you. Okay, what do I want to talk about next? A couple of things, housekeeping. So we're just going to keep you muted, just as we've been talking about this whole time, just to minimize disruptions. But if you do have questions, we'd love to hear those. We've got a couple of folks in the background here who are going to be answering those through the chat pane. So go ahead and pop your questions into the chat pane, and we'll get those done throughout the call today. But you will absolutely have the chance to ask your questions verbally when we get to the end. We'll stop the recording just again for privacy reasons, and we'll have you just raise your virtual hand, and we'll let you unmute yourselves at that time. And you can ask Jimmy, who's now turned his camera on, your questions to your heart's contented. So we would love to have you unmute yourselves at that point. So, and since we're talking about Jimmy, let's go ahead and introduce him. So once again, I'd like to welcome you to session 1 of today's devices track. So I'm joined by my good friend, Jimmy Vaughn, who is a very exciting presenter from our partner technical sales team here at Microsoft. And he's going to talk to us very specifically around Teams Rooms today. So he's going to showcase the Teams devices, art of the possible, and it's going to have an understanding of hybrid meeting trends and a really clear sense of how space and culture all come together to and intersect to help meet your organization's needs. So Jimmy, I'm going to just toss things over to you and turn my camera off, turn my mic off, and let you take over. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Sarah's morning. It's my afternoon. We've got a whole collection of people around here to help us talk about devices and what is the art of the possible. Thank you, Sarah, for that wonderful introduction. We're going to go through a bunch of slides today. And this is the agenda that we're going to have. We're going to start with hybrid work. We've been talking about hybrid work for a couple of years now and things like that. But we're going to be going through and we're going to have some polls. We're going to have information. I want you to use the chat. There are people in the background that are here to answer any questions that you have. I'm also monitoring the chat. Please don't think that I'm reading a script. I'm actually very animated in the way that I talk and the way that I do presentations. I'm going to tell you a whole bunch of stories around a whole bunch of different things that we have. But why don't we start by setting the agenda today and setting expectations. So hybrid work. We talk about hybrid work and we talk about what is hybrid work, and the future of the work is hybrid. I mean, work is no longer a place that I go. It's something that I do. And no matter where I am, I need the tools to be able to actually work and solve problems. That's the current environment that we're in right now. We need tools that will help us collaborate. We need improved work-life boundaries. You can see me today. I'm actually a very animated talker who talks with my hands. Those kind of nonverbal cues are the kind of things that we all work on. That's why in-person work is so much different than remote work. But what we've got to do is we've got to have that flexibility because, as I said, work is no longer a place that I go. It's something that I do, and I need to be enabled to have that work access no matter where I am. So as we did studies over the past 3 years, what Microsoft has really found is that hybrid work is inevitable. We always take Microsoft and we look and we say, all right, Microsoft is one of the largest companies in the world. How are we approaching the subject, and how are we approaching this for not only us as an organization, but how can we lead in this effort so that other organizations will not struggle as they find exactly what they want to do? So if we know that hybrid work is inevitable, we know that we've got to create flexible work environments. That means that I don't want people in the office 5 days a week. But what if I do dictate that they come in 5 days a week? How is that going to benefit exactly what they do? How are they going to collaborate in person if not everybody's there? Well, we know that there's a lot of things to sort of look at when we go back to the office. You know, how is the office equipped with equipment? Right? You know, right now I'm at home. I have a great setup here with the display right in front of me. I've got a microphone, I've got speakers, I've got lighting, I've got everything that I need here. Now, when I go back to the office, am I going to have a better work environment, or am I going to be challenged with using that technology? Is staying connected harder when I go to the office versus the environment that I already know and I've built to my perfection of here at home? We've got to look at the way that employees are actually collaborating. And if we know not everybody's going to be there, we know a large majority of meetings will come to have remote employees. And how do we bring those remote employees in? You know, we're going to talk about conference rooms and how they were difficult to use prior to the pandemic and how we don't want to go back to the same old problems. So one of the things I want to do is I want to actually kick it off with a poll and sort of poll everybody here and ask, is your organization prepared to support hybrid work? How prepared do you feel as an organization today to go ahead and say, all right, we are prepared as an organization? I know at Microsoft, I feel that we're very prepared. We've been at the forefront of how a lot of organizations are approaching hybrid work and saying not everybody's going to be in the office 5 days a week. We've shifted to more of that hybrid model where we give employees the ability to actually say, I will be in this day, but I won't be in this day. We're actually working on AI tools that will go ahead and correspond and say, hey, if I am going to the office and I'm the only one that's going to the office, maybe I want to prompt somebody to say, okay, there's no need for you to go in today. You can save some commute time and actually stay at home since you're going to be the only one. And I'm glad that most people say that you feel very prepared. But I think what we're going to see here is that while most people feel that they're prepared, there's some things that I'm probably going to point out that a lot of people inside of the group right now today are going to say, well, I didn't actually think about that. Are we really prepared? Are we really prepared to go back to the office? And I see some actually feel like you're not prepared at all. That's not an uncommon thing. But what I see is between the three different answers, we've got to have flexibility. As we go back to the office, our leadership and our employees both need to be flexible on both sides about how we're approaching hybrid work. So at Microsoft, we're actually looking to addressing your needs. This slide right here has a whole bunch of different quotes on it that I think every one of us can relate to. People working remotely are not engaged. Leadership, they definitely feel that people remotely are not engaged and inside of their best work efforts. Why? Because they're coming from an existence of this is 5 days a week, you're inside of the office, we know what everybody's doing, and we know when they're working and we know when they're not working. That's a defined work set of the past 100-something years that we've been working. Now we've got to shift, like I said, to be flexible. People, as they go back to the office, if we know hybrid is there, we've got to introduce that flexibility. But think about the meeting room prior to the pandemic. Think about how we were approaching spaces and shared spaces that we all shared. How many people walked into the meeting room and said, I don't know how to actually start a meeting? Or maybe it was the kind of thing where only one room inside of the entire organization was actually outfitted for that meeting. And that was the boardroom where the C-level executives met. Everybody else might have had a phone inside of a room, or maybe they just had the display on the wall and they don't know how to actually bring in remote workers. So we've got to look at endpoints, and we've got to look at how they're going to be deployed and how they're going to be secured and managed. Because if we know not everybody's coming to the office, we know more meetings will be hybrid, which means we have to outfit more spaces. And we must look at the ways that we're deploying these in those 4 pillars that you see on the screen of inclusivity, easy to use, flexible, and secured and managed. That's the way that we built many of the devices that exist here at Microsoft. And I'm going to ask now for another poll to come up. What do you think is the biggest challenge that your business faces that a Teams room could solve? I know for me, many of the customers that I speak to, they actually adopted Teams over the pandemic, but their meeting room solutions are actually on a different platform. So as they go back to the office, the challenge now becomes, how do I actually schedule those meeting rooms? How do my users know which platform to actually book there? I can see one of the responses connecting to the screen. Remember, if it's a BYOD scenario, is that really easy to use? Do I need to plug in? Do I need to feel comfortable with the technology that's inside of the room? These are all things that we're going to actually interface when we go back to the office and we enter a blank room. Maybe it's there for what we call BYOD, or bring your own device, which would be the laptop. I saw one of the answers was, I don't need to bring a laptop. With Teams rooms, correct, you don't. And that's why we look at Teams rooms as one of the great solutions for shared spaces. You might think of multiple systems. We're going to go over something called direct guest join, which is actually on a Teams room, which enables you to forward a Zoom meeting to a Teams room system and join using that single touch join. And you join using Zoom protocols. Zoom and Microsoft have actually come to an agreement on things. So has WebEx. It's part of a program where Zoom engineers engineer their solution for Teams rooms, and WebEx engineers engineer their solution for Teams rooms, and Teams rooms engineer their solution for our competitor platforms. It's an idea that we've come together, and we're sort of building on what's not traditional video systems, but our own platforms to allow platforms to do what prior to this was called video interop, but we're allowing to join on native platforms throughout the system. So when we think about hybrid, we've got to think about 3 different places that we go through. Cultural means that what is the behavior that's going to be happening when we go into the office? We need to provide an ecosystem of choices for people when they come to the office. Maybe it's hot desking. Maybe it's a dedicated office. Those dedicated offices, in my opinion, are really going to be a thing of the past, and hot desking and shared spaces are really going to be the way that we look at things. Why is that going to be important? It's because the second idea that's on the slide right there, the physical space. As organizations look at their physical space, many times that's the number one cost that they have inside of office buildings. And think about 3 years ago when we went to hybrid. Remember, a lot of companies were looking at the cloud and saying, all right, we've got a 7-year initiative that we're going to look at. We're going to transition from our on-prem solutions over to the cloud. Well, that 5 to 7 year time frame went from 5 to 7 years to 5 to 7 weeks. And here's a great thing. There were struggles and there were challenges that happened, but for the most part, not a lot fell down. And a lot of people went on that accelerated journey into the cloud. And now as we go back to the office, we don't want to go back to those old systems. We don't want to incorporate the physical environment into the new ways that we've been working. And that digital, and build on that digital foundation of teams so that even the office spaces that are physical can become up to date with the experiences and enhancements. We're going to go through some layouts on Teams rooms inside of this session that we have here today to sort of talk about how are we innovating, how are we really building on the experiences of the past so that we can incorporate the future as well. We're going to look at a lot of that. Now, as we talk about that physical role and the physical workspace, the role of the office is changing. And we know that the role of the office is changing because we've done many index studies that we do, not only with our largest of customers, but even some of our smaller customers to say, how are you approaching the office and how are you approaching this work? You know, what's funny is that many leadership people in charge of the organization will say, I want people back to the office 5 days a week because that's when I know that they're working. But employees will say, I'm more productive in the space that I've built at home because I don't have that hour and a half commute. I don't have to be away from my family for the entire day and only come home to eat dinner and then have a quick amount of time before I'm back to work later in the evening. So as you see leadership saying, I want people in the office, and employees saying, I'm more effective at home, we got what we've termed productivity paranoia. That's the space between leadership and the understanding with employees. And that productivity paranoia space really causes some challenges for organizations. Because unless we can outfit the physical office inside of the office space, we're going to continue to have that productivity paranoia. And C-level executives and leadership are going to say, I want you back into the office, while employees are going to say, I'm more productive at home. Our CEO at Microsoft actually had a very good insight into what is the office. And he said the office is actually a tool that we can use, and we should learn to use that tool effectively. We shouldn't rely on the way that organizations have done business for the past 100, 200 years and say, this is the space, here's your dedicated desk, and I want you here from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I want you to be working at this time, and then you're off on your free time. We've got to look at how can we actually accomplish the goals that are set forth for people? How can we actually remotely work and in the office work? And why would we go to the office? Many times we go to the office just for one reason, to collaborate with our colleagues, to see them in person. You know, many times I'm doing these speeches, and as you can see here, I've got a monitor where I can see the slides and I can see everybody's name. I can see the chat that's inside of the right-hand pane, but my camera is actually above the screen. And you might feel like, oh, it's a little bit impersonal to have Jimmy speaking to me, and I don't see that eye contact. Why? And I do this in person speeches a lot of times, and I'll look up at the ceiling and I'll say, here's how I'm speaking to you. How does this feel? Do you feel like I'm being genuine? And the answer is no, because in person meeting, we have that eye gaze. We have that in-person experience that's natural, and that's something that's emotional to us. So you're going to see in Teams rooms, we're sort of bringing that forward. And we're bringing that forward in the solution that we have of Microsoft Teams rooms. And these are purpose-built devices. While they run, some do run on Windows and some run on Android, they are purpose-built devices that are not meant to be, oh, I'm going to grow this solution. We work with our OEM partners. We work with the best in breed in conference room manufacturers to bring solutions that work inside of your team's workflow or your team's ecosystem. We are not asking users to learn a different way of meeting inside of the conference room than they have at home. And we build these systems on 4 pillars. As I alluded to earlier in an earlier slide: inclusivity, easy to use, flexible, secure to manage. With inclusivity, we want to foster that interactive meeting. We want to make you feel as if you're sitting across the table from your colleagues when you go to a meeting room. Remember, not everybody will be in the office. And if not everybody's in the office, how do those remote people feel that when they're actually remote? Think about the last analog device that's actually in a conference room, the whiteboard. We all struggled prior to the pandemic to see the whiteboard. Well, Microsoft Teams has a unified whiteboard experience where I can share from the system tray and I can share a whiteboard and everybody can see that whiteboard. Inclusivity is important. We've got solutions to bring that analog whiteboard into the meeting. So inclusivity and those natural tendencies like eye gaze, those are the things that we want to bring into the inclusive meeting. We don't want to make people that are in the room or external to the room feel like different class citizens inside of the meeting itself. So by bringing everybody into this inclusive environment of Teams itself, we can now have a better meeting experience. And the second pillar is easy to use for all. Many times you walk into conference rooms and they're customized. And conference room A is customized differently than conference room B, which provides a terrible solution for the users to go and try to figure out, well, how am I going to start this meeting? On the last poll that we had, somebody said, I want to connect to the screen. Well, that shouldn't be the goal of all conference room providers. The goal for conference room providers should be, I want to provide an easy to use solution for my users. Now, that doesn't mean plugging in a device and bringing it up and figuring out, oh, I want people on this screen, I want content on this screen, or where is my actual microphone? What's my default communication device? Oh, the camera's not working. Where is the camera plugged into? Not figuring that out, because 9 out of 10 people, I'm a very technical person. I can walk into a conference room, I can plug in a device, and I'm comfortable. But guess what? Even though I'm comfortable, if the room doesn't have a dedicated device where I'm hitting a join button, I may show up late to that meeting if my meeting's with the CEO. Why? I don't want to necessarily run that meeting, because if there are problems inside of that meeting, I don't want it to look to leadership like I'm not capable of actually running my own device. So those are challenges that actually happen inside of rooms, and we look at things, and that's why we really strive to have dedicated devices inside of the room. We're not naive thinking that this is going to happen overnight, but that's where we want these rooms to get to, is to that dedicated device. And the third pillar is flexibility. No matter what the room is, whether that's an open concept room, whether it's filled with glass walls, whether it's the dedicated conference room of that boardroom style that we've had for years and years, we need to Teams enable that room. And when we see Teams enable that room, we need to give the same experience that your users are having on their desktop, where they hit that single touch join. We need to bring that into the conference room or those shared spaces or those collaboration spaces and make it easy for them to actually have that meeting and not be met with technical challenges. And the fourth pillar is what Microsoft lives on: secure and managed. You've heard about Microsoft Zero Trust. We want to make sure that these devices are secured and managed. Having a secured and managed device inside of a shared space is very different than having a secured and managed device for a personal device. I say this because things like multi-factor authentication, that doesn't work inside of a shared environment. Who owns the cell phone, which is that second part of having something that having something to actually verify that I am who I say I am. That doesn't work inside of a shared environment. But what does work is having a dedicated device that doesn't hold on to collateral, doesn't give somebody that's not actually authorized inside of that meeting to actually look at things that are shared inside of that meeting experience. That is the idea of having a zero trust inside of a shared space. And we also want to look at the total economic of Microsoft Teams devices, whether it's a headphone, whether it's a phone that lives on the desk, or our Teams displays. What is the economic impact of these devices? Well, we know having dedicated Microsoft Teams rooms is a huge reduction on the IT support costs. Why? Because many times IT actually owns the conference rooms, but the conference rooms are really AV. And having a dedicated device that actually works with this set number of rules, and this is the way that they're deployed, and they're deployed at mass scale from an IT standpoint, that can have a huge reduction on the IT support cost. Having the Teams Room Pro portal, which actually works on AI and can remediate situations that were commonly, oh, somebody came into the room, found a problem, and raised a ticket. Being able to actually remediate a problem without raising a ticket, that's a huge reduction in support cost. And the license to actually consolidate those rooms. Think about all the different licenses that we have for conference rooms, but being able to consolidate that into a Microsoft Teams room that can, again, join that occasional Zoom meeting or that occasional WebEx meeting. Being able to consolidate those licenses, Microsoft has this do more with less attitude that we really want to strive and we really want to show people we can accomplish so much more with just the Microsoft side of things. Also, the avoided travel expenses. Again, if not everybody's going to the office and not everybody has to actually make it in person, we can have those meetings without having to travel to the site directly. Now, that doesn't mean that it always happens that way. That just means that many times we can actually avoid travel expenses. And the automation and the process savings. Having the same experience across all of your organization from room to room to room will reduce in not only process, but also inside of training, awareness, and everything that happens inside of your organizations with the users. The Pro Portal actually has the ability to work with Microsoft partners so that when you say, I need a small room, we can reduce the amount of friction that it takes. Nobody has to pick up a phone and say, hey, here's the size of the room that I want to build. Here's what I would like inside of it. We'll give you a button where it can actually contact a Microsoft partner, and that room can automatically be ordered through the portal itself. Reducing the friction, reducing the amount of time that it takes to actually think up, all right, what are we going to do for this room itself? Now, we're going to go to another poll, and I want to sort of ask, does your organization have Microsoft Teams rooms today? I know not many, from statistics that we have here at Microsoft, not many have a complete fleet of Microsoft Teams rooms, but it's important to understand if you've got Teams, you should be looking at Microsoft Teams rooms because they do transition your users from Microsoft Teams on their personal devices to a shared device space where people can actually meet in person. Many organizations that have hundreds of licenses have tens of systems, and those that have thousands of licenses have hundreds of systems inside of their organization. Again, as we look at not many people will be going to the office, we've got to look at our fleet of rooms and say, okay, how many rooms do we need? How many rooms are actually out there where we need to actually outfit them? And I see that I'm actually talking to a great audience today because many of you have less than 25 Teams rooms, which means you probably have teams inside of your organization. You may not have looked at Teams rooms as an overall strategy. And that may actually change after today, after you see all the different things that we have. Now, one of the great things is you can try Teams rooms. We've got availability to actually try things, and we'll get into that a little bit later on, where we're going to expose you to some opportunities that we have with not only our OEM partners, but actually here at Microsoft ourselves, where we can share with you exactly how we've done things. Now, the power is in the platform and the native Teams experience. As we've been talking, I've been sort of sharing with you the idea that we are taking Teams into the shared space through the platform itself. And we want to make sure that everybody's ready for this. Now, what is the lesser of ideas? Well, the idea is hybrid needs to be on this continuum. And with a growing amount of devices that we have, we can make deployment models really, really simple and make them make sense. We just announced that Enterprise Connect. We're going to actually look at this BYOD or bring your own device and give some opportunities for customers to actually bring some value into those spaces as well. Many times when we talk to customers, we say, how many rooms do you have? And we're met with a blank look and we say, well, I'm not sure. And why don't they know? The statistic we use here at Microsoft is 8% of shared meeting spaces are outfitted with technology. That can be as little as a display or a telephone inside of a room. That means 1 in 10 shared spaces are actually outfitted appropriately for a hybrid work scenario that we just went through. And bring your own device is a very common scenario for a lot of customers that are out there. Why are they doing this? Well, they don't necessarily want to dedicate it to one platform. Like I said, we're going to go through Direct Guest Join and show you that we're not just one platform. We actually have solutions that will help Teams rooms join those occasional meeting solutions. Now, why do we say Teams rooms? Well, we assume that your majority of your meetings will be on Teams. Internal meetings will likely be on Teams, and likely those external meetings with other customers will have a team Zoom meeting or a WebEx meeting, and we want to make sure that those meetings can be accommodated inside of the room itself. But with BYOD, we want to actually just start to give you a little bit of statistics of how you're using rooms. Because if we ask how many rooms do you have, and you can't answer that question, it's likely that you can't also answer the question, how are you using these rooms? And with simple things that we can put inside of the BYOD category, we can start to give you some behavior and start to model how your users are using those rooms so that your real estate and facilities department can actually make informed decisions. We don't want people just guessing at this. We always say we use Microsoft as customer zero, and we want to show you how Microsoft has done this. But we also want to add that it's got to be a flexible environment that you're going into. And that's why we're looking at the BYOD as the solution itself. But we always position the best solution as a native Teams room. Why? You walk in, you hit that single touch join. That's a large percentage of how far people will get into the meeting room itself. They will launch that meeting with that single touch join. It will engage all of the technology that's inside of the room, and your users are inside of the meeting automatically without challenging, how do I use this room? Remember, I started this by saying, think about the rooms that we had prior to the pandemic. They were challenging. Every single one was customized. Conference room A was different from conference room B, and how you joined was up to the person that actually designed that room. That's what we're doing with Teams rooms, is trying to make it a solution that's common throughout every single room. Now, the next poll I'm going to ask you to actually challenge is a multiple choice question. Which features is most important to you inside of our devices? Is it the AI-powered audio and video device experiences? We've got amazing camera solutions from our OEM providers that can not only split up people that are inside of the room and put them into their own squares. We've got the idea that it can follow people that are actually speaking inside of the room. We've got the idea that as you're having a conversation, we can actually take the best angle and do almost like TV production solutions, where we can say, well, this is Jimmy from the front and this is Jimmy from this side. This is the best angle we're going to actually put out. Or is it inclusive video layouts? We're going to go into a layout of front row. But the enterprise grade management and security is something important that we do as well. But for me, I'm going to actually answer that one touch join right on the bottom of the screen. Why? I know from statistics, that's probably the largest thing that people will look at and say, I want to be able to have an easy experience when I go, no matter whether I'm in the largest of meeting spaces or the smallest of meeting spaces. I'm always met with the same interface. I'm always met with the same opportunity. I schedule the room the exact same way. And if it's already booked, I will get a decline automatically through Microsoft Outlook. I know how to use this. This is a common way that we're going to book spaces. And I'm glad that you actually agree with me. But the enterprise grade management and security, every single choice that we had on that screen, there is not a bad choice on there. But I think it really outlines exactly what we want to get through in this session, is that flexibility is key. Now, Microsoft Teams Rooms is that modern meeting space. We talked about the idea of flexibility inside of the room itself. And no matter what the room is, we want to make sure that we can Teams enable that space. From the smallest of focus rooms up to the largest of conference rooms, even auditoriums. We work with the best in breed partners to bring those solutions to our customers so that they are not challenged with, well, how do we do this? How do we do that? We want to make sure that every single room type can be accommodated. By the way, as we see it and as we do studies, we actually see that focus room becoming more and more popular. I led with one of the stats. 8% of meeting rooms actually have technology inside of them. One of our biggest growing categories is that small room. And why? Because if not everybody's coming in, those people that are coming in probably have one or two people on the outside that they want to bring in as well. And maybe there's two of them that are actually collaborating inside of the office. So those smaller meeting rooms are actually where we see a tremendous amount of growth. But we also want to see, one of the poll that we just had about AI and about being able to see and hear everybody inside of the call. Every single Teams room is designed to make sure that you can be seen and you can be heard. Seeing people, seeing my hands actually talk, that's an important part of the nonverbal communication. Remember that when we were outfitting meeting rooms before, you may have actually seen what we call the bowling alley view from the top of the screen, and it overlooked everybody inside of the meeting room. What was I challenged with? I was challenged with who's actually doing the speaking. I might not be able to see them. So we work with our integrators and we say, hey, it's great if you can put the camera at eye level right underneath the screen, like you see inside of this animation there. That way, when we're looking at the screen and you can see the people are right above that camera. Now I've got that eye gaze that I spoke about before. It's that natural tendency. It's natural to have a deeper connection of feeling with people when you're actually seeing and it feels like we're speaking across the table from each other. Face-to-face is always going to be the preferred meeting solution to remote, but the closer that we can get to that, the better off we're going to be. And we have so many different layouts that can actually improve how you're running your Teams rooms. And we can actually define what layout goes with which room and how does it start inside of this room itself. A room like you saw before with that front row layout at the front of the room, we can define that so that every single time that somebody hits that single touch join, they're met with that interface. But we can allow those advanced users to actually choose another type that they want to look at. Maybe they just want to see content, or maybe they just want to see people. We allow you to actually change these layouts throughout the system as well. Now, AI can enhance how everybody can be seen and heard as well. Here you actually see what we call a center of room table, center of room camera shot that we have where we've outfitted the room with a center of room camera. At the bottom, you will see a 360-degree view of the camera, but you also see the 4 people that are inside of the room, and they're shot with Microsoft IntelliFrame, giving them each their own box and removing a lot of that empty space of the room. This helps foster the feeling that the remote people struggle to see the people inside of the room because of all that empty space that lives inside of the room itself. We also are able to actually identify those people inside of the room and give them their name. We do this through technology, opt-in technology, that we're allowing customers to say, hey, as a user, would you like to opt in so that when you're in this shared meeting space, all of the transcription that happens is attributed to you and not the anonymous conference room. It's not only important what is said, it's as important who said it. If my manager or my leadership give me a task versus somebody that I don't report to, that's an important part of the conversation that we must talk about. Those people that I don't report to probably don't know my priorities, but my leadership, they know my priorities. And if they give me a task to do, I know it's important to them, which means that it's important to me. So by doing this, we can actually help people. We're in more and more meetings every single day. I'm triple booked later today, believe it or not. But many times what I'll do is I'll go and follow up with the transcript and I'll see where did they mention Jimmy? Yes, I speak to myself as Jimmy, but where did they mention Jimmy and how can I actually find out when my name was checked? Well, I'll go through the transcript, I'll hit Control F, or I have some AI tools that can actually bring that to the forefront for me and say, here's a task item that was actually brought to you. The only way that you get access to these sort of things that we're doing with AI is through Teams rooms. Other solutions, BYOD, different solutions like that, don't always have that capability. Think about bring your own device. If I bring my device to a conference room and I launch a Teams meeting, guess who everybody is going to be attributed to? Whoever's device that is. So these are the reasons why we actually look at Teams rooms and we say, we want you to get to a dedicated Teams device, dedicated Teams room device. Now, when we talk about Teams rooms, these are certified devices. Certified is not a rubber stamp. They are not certified. We have many top manufacturers who are not certified. You might see Works with, you might see certain things like that. We want you to stay with Teams certified devices. Certified goes through not only laboratory testing, but also in-person use testing out in Redmond and out on our campuses around the world, making sure that not only when it passes the laboratory tests, it passes the user tests. And our users here at Microsoft are constantly using new devices and giving feedback and giving information to the product group to say, I'm okay with this device, or we should look at other things as well. Now, Teams Rooms comes in 3 different flavors. One is modular. Many times this is a Microsoft Teams Room on Windows where you have a compute, and then my camera, microphone, and speaker are all separate components, making it easy to actually replace that room in the future. Think about an organization. What is the most costly of doing a conference room? Well, it's that rip and replace. But what if I can just actually replace a camera with a brand new intelligent camera from Microsoft certified solutions and say, okay, now I can take advantage of these solutions because I just replaced the camera itself and it was unplugging and plugging a new one in. That's the idea of modular and the idea that we can actually bring things. Many of the systems that have been put in for the past 4 years, they're still taking updates today. They're still taking feature updates, and those are free feature updates that come from Microsoft's solutions that have been deployed for the past 4 years. Each year we add features onto Teams Rooms. All of the Teams Rooms have been able to adopt these features throughout the life of their devices. The second category is integrated, where your speaker, your microphone, and your camera are all put in a bar. Think about how easy this might be to deploy to those focus rooms. I take and I put it to a display, and I've got a console on the table. Now I've outfitted one of those focus rooms with a full conference room solution, and it might have taken only a couple of hours to actually hang the display, put the bar in, and then test the room, and your integrator's done. Or maybe even easier, an all-in-one solution. Some of our OEMs are coming out with boards now that actually put the entire solution inside of that frame. So I can put it on a cart. I can wheel it inside of a room. I don't even need to mount anything. That's how quickly some of these solutions can go in. So what you're looking at here are our OEMs. And like I said, these are the best in breed in conference room technology. You might recognize even some large PC manufacturers there, HP, Lenovo, and Dell. If you're a customer that actually purchases from these companies themselves, now you can outfit your Teams Rooms right through the same purchase program that you have with them. Also on the left-hand side, we've got Cisco rooms, Neat rooms, Logitech rooms, a whole bunch of different common names that you all know and love for the conference room. They are doing certified Teams Rooms devices. Now, our next poll is going to be asked about a couple of hurdles you might see for Teams Rooms. What's the biggest hurdle that you have currently inside of your organization? Is the deployment strategy too complicated? Meaning, hey, I don't know how we're going to do rooms. We're mainly a team house, but we don't know which one we're going to do. Maybe we need to look at standardized video, or maybe we need a bridging service, or maybe we need that. Is it too complicated to think about? Is it costs? Conference rooms are expensive. You know, many rooms that we've looked at over the past couple of years, that's a high cost of entry. Those costs are coming down. You can see even in the modular designs or the all-in-ones, those costs have come down a significant amount. Or is it an unclear value in the proposition? You know, okay, I have Teams, but what do I need it for? I can bring my own device and I can satisfy with all that. There is no wrong answer. The good part is I see the top two are probably exactly where it is. Cost has always been one of the big barriers for entry into let's do those other 9 conference rooms. Remember, 1 out of 10 are satisfied with technology. But now as we look at it, those other 9 become just as important, and even more important if more people start to come to the office. And the deployment strategy, we've got to figure that out. If the deployment strategy is too complicated, we've made it really easy, and we can work with partners. We can work with situations like Fast Track, and we can help our customers actually bridge those hurdles of the complicated strategy and try to make it easy. And again, looking at Microsoft as customer zero, we can sort of say, all right, let's make it a little bit easier. And let's dive deep into exactly what Microsoft actually has. We're going to watch a couple of videos here, but we're going to talk about the Microsoft Digital Team. Now, Microsoft is customer zero. Again, the deployment strategy is too complicated, but Microsoft has tens of thousands of conference rooms across the globe. How do we tackle this? I'm going to play a video here. I'm going to go on mute and I'm going to play a video, and I'll come back and sort of share with you exactly how we're actually looking at this. But this is a very important subject, and there's a whole team of people tackling this subject here at Microsoft.
Welcome to Hive. We've been working here for really almost a decade now on the internal employee experience for all of our conference rooms and workplaces worldwide.
You would not imagine that there is a building in Microsoft which is full of people sort of experimenting with space and furniture and how people are working.
So our team here is a partnership across our own employee experience team, our global workplace services team, as well as the research and development teams building the product.
It's also our living laboratory. Lots of movable components. You got cardboard tables and styrofoam things that we can move around and do rapid prototyping and testing. So it's our little garage that we can tool around with stuff.
Around the time of the pandemic, one day, everybody around the world just stopped using all of our conference rooms. Very quickly, we realized, okay, something big is happening here. We have a new world where everyone can meet all the time from wherever they are. At the same time, we lost a lot of the human connection. What we are looking at is a sea change in the way that workplaces are going to be designed.
When we gather together to consider how to solve a problem, we all have different ways of approaching it, different ways of looking at it.
Probably the funnest part of my job is figuring out how to break stuff so that then we can figure out how to fix it.
We've got ideas in here that literally came together with a cutting knife, some duct tape, and some cardboard.
I am lucky to be in this space at just the right time. We have accelerated a decade-long change, and we've compressed it in 2 years.
Our work here is made possible because of the platform that we have, and specifically the Teams experience. Every room you walk into, it's just a Teams room, just like the software that's on your device. That's the magic of having a consistent, powerful collaboration platform that get better all the time. It's that partnership that makes all this possible.
And I think creating spaces like this and bringing in real consumers of those spaces and testing this in real environments is really important.
Companies spend huge amounts of money on commercial real estate every year. They're all thinking about how do they need to evolve their workplace. And changing that real estate is especially challenging.
They involve physical changes to the room and furniture, technical changes to the audio-visual equipment and software, and then, of course, trying to optimize this idea of including everyone.
And we will show them rooms that look like the rooms that they're familiar with, and then the exact same space that we've transformed. In one case, we have our fully remodeled room, and that's been fully thought through end to end for an optimal hybrid experience, but at a higher cost. And then in another case, we have a room where we retrofitted it with new furniture and hardware and software, but without changing the fundamental structure of the room. And that eliminates a huge amount of cost in that space while still bringing a real hybrid between the physical and the virtual.
The work that we've done and the work that we continue to do has so much value to external customers that we're going to start to intentionally turn those standards outward.
And so those standards really form the sort of quality guarantee to have that experience for a remote attendee while still giving the people in the room an experience that's meaningfully better. That's the kind of magic that we want to drive.
We're working every day trying to figure out what experiences do we push out that make sense not just for Microsoft, but for everyone.
From that video, you get the idea. Microsoft has been looking at this, and we've been actually doing a whole bunch of different things. So what did we do beyond that? Well, the Microsoft digital team actually shared with our partners outer room archetypes. Like I said, we have tens of thousands of meeting rooms across the globe. And when we look at things, we don't always look at them as this is conference room 1, this is conference room 2, this is conference room 3. We want to scale on a deployment strategy that fits that entire tens of thousands of rooms. So we break it down into different types: large, small, medium, so on, so forth. You can see we actually built furniture out of cardboard. Why did we do that? We didn't always have the furniture that we needed. And not being able to actually build furniture ourselves, cardboard provides a solution where we can quickly adapt and quickly say, all right, well, this curvature doesn't fit here, but it does fit inside of here. And we've built these kind of rooms and share these archetypes with our partners to go through. Now, one of the spaces that we did is the signature Microsoft Teams rooms. If you've been in the video conferencing space, you might see elements of what was called the immersive telepresence room. That costs a large amount of money. Now, the last poll that we did, the deployment strategy was too complicated and the costs were too high. This is now a budget-friendly room. And we've had C-level executives and leadership executives come into and experience this room and say, I want this. Why do they want this? They don't want the camera. They don't want the display. They don't want the furniture. They want all of it because it's the experience. It has elevated that hybrid meeting experience to the level that they really want to see for their employees that are not only in the office, but also those that are remote. We talked about that camera being at eye level and having that feeling that I'm sitting across the room. You can see in the depiction there, 100% this lives across the world. So I'm going to play another video for us right now that actually goes through this experience because it does a much better job of explaining it than I can do here off the cuff. So I'll be right back after this video as well. So the archetypes that I'm going to show you now, not only the Microsoft Signature Teams rooms, but these are actual bill of materials and things that we work with here at Microsoft to build out our rooms. The Microsoft digital team that you saw in the last video, and you're going to see here in an upcoming video as well, these are their products that they actually built. And we're able to share this out with partners who can help our customers. And Richard, I see one of the things that you said, simplicity of Cisco. Well, guess what? Cisco's now a Microsoft Teams Room partner, and their devices can actually be worked into Microsoft Teams Room systems. That's the idea of bridging this gap and making sure that the platform is the first and most important part of that room. If you think that Cisco's devices are easy to deploy and easy to use, then 100% they can be worked into these rooms. Following these guidelines of a focus room, of a small room, of a large room, and a meeting room, making sure that no matter which room we have, we can outfit these rooms with the technology that we have. Now, we don't always work in one OEM into these. Many times you'll see multiple vendors that are actually inside of a room. And this is the way that Microsoft has done it. But we want to make sure that not everybody says, oh, the right way is the way that Microsoft does it. We want to provide this as guidance. And what works for Microsoft may work in a small amount of rooms for you. But again, the flexibility side needs to be there. So we look at every single room that you have and we can outfit them. And making sure that every room is there. I'm going to play this next video that we have to just make sure that we all are on the same footing as the design team and sort of give us some more guidance from our Microsoft digital team as well.
So this is a small conference room, and we have about 4,000 of these worldwide at Microsoft. They all look kind of the same. You've got a screen on the far wall, table in the center, 6 or 7 seats around the table, and everyone's facing each other. We do meetings like this all the time, but if you're not in this room, it's not a great experience for you. So we asked ourselves, what can we do to make a better hybrid experience in this kind of room? This room is the exact same size, but we've changed the hardware and the furniture to make for a better hybrid experience. Let me show you. So we took the table and moved it against the wall and changed the shape so that the people in the room are seated around it, facing the remote attendees. It's like one big circle of remote and in-person people. Content is on the wall, bright, front and center, and much wider. The camera can see everyone sitting around the table. So you've got that same great hybrid experience. But we also realized that we have about half the room left over. So what do we do there? We brought in this extra table. So now from 6 or 7 people, you now have 10 seats in the room. And the people sitting back here, they can be seen by the camera just as well as the people around the table because they're higher up and they can be seen over the heads of the folks that are at the table. Now, if I just want to come in here and have a brainstorming session with a few folks, I don't have to sit down even. We've got the table here, I can put my laptop down and we can do a whiteboarding session right here. And I can even bring in a remote attendee and they can contribute to the whiteboard from wherever they're at as well. And so it's a super versatile room, and the best part of this is because we didn't change anything with the construction, the lighting, the electrical, we've been able to achieve a lot of really great hybrid improvements for a lot less money than a full remodel. This room represents the kind of hybrid experience that we can deploy at scale around the world.
So you can see from Microsoft taking that small room, how we looked at the space and we really looked and said, all right, how can we better accomplish everything we need to do and actually fit more people inside of that room as well. Not only for the meeting type, but also for the collaboration side as well. We outfit spaces for the meeting type that's there, whether it's a collaboration room, whether it's a primary meeting room. We can make sure that you and your customers will ultimately be able to use that room for exactly what it's used for. And again, going even to the medium-sized room, we can provide our partners with guidance for exactly how we did the tens of thousands of conference rooms around the world. Now, we're going to go to the next poll that we have. And with a multiple choice, how would you prefer to start your journey with the product, with the Microsoft Teams rooms? Is it a free trial, in-depth product demo, sales conversation? I know I'm presenting a lot of slides today and a lot of sort of compelling reasons why we at Microsoft feel that Teams rooms should be inside of your Teams journey and be inside of your side of things. But it's not always the best way for everybody to approach it with a free trial. For me, many organizations will say that free trial. Oh, I want to try this inside of my organization. But then when they realize, oh, I have to dedicate a space to it and it's not just on my desk, it falls a little bit flat. So an in-depth product demo inside of an MTC might be a better way to do it. Or maybe it's just a conversation with your sales team saying, hey, I was on this Converged communication session and I saw Jimmy and he made a compelling argument for why we should look at Teams rooms. There's no wrong answer here, but understanding that all of these might be a way to do it. You might want to try each and every one of these. And we've got teams here at Microsoft that can actually help you on that journey as well. So we're going to go through one more video, and we're going to show you a bit about the big part of the cost and how we look at things at Microsoft. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the collateral that might be available to all of us so we can learn more.
I'm going to show you a little bit of the elements that we put into the room to make this experience pop. So first of all, you can see this is a very widescreen projector. This is a 21:9 aspect ratio. And what that gives us is a nice wide surface area to show all the remote attendees in the room. And you're seeing them at eye level and about human size. So they're true life size folks that you're seeing. Additionally, we now have space to put the content above and full front and center content. And you're seeing things like chat and raised hands and other items on the screen. So this is a really nice, natural environment for a group of 6 or 7 people to meet with a group of online people, and the interactions here can be very natural. So one of the most difficult parts of putting a room together is stringing all the wires and the cables and hanging all the AV in the room. And with this room, we actually have a really, really simple design that makes a lot of that just go away. We took all of the components in the room, the audio, the video, the projection, the compute, the networking, and we enclosed it all here in this one enclosure. We worked with an industrial design firm to actually design this in such a way that it all fits, it's locked away, It's pretty stable on the floor. It can be dropped into a room like this, plugged in. You've got your canvas on the wall for the projection surface, and you're done. So this really simplifies the process of deploying a room, which is a big part of the cost.
Again, showing how Microsoft Digital is doing it and how we're value engineering many of the rooms that we have. That's an important part of the team story that we wanted to share with you. Now, again, these room archetype documents, they're going to be available to you. They are available to you with the bill of materials, the specifications, and even the installation instructions and the architectural plans. We have taken this and made this available to our partners. But Teams devices for any space is a really important part to come out of this. Whether I've got my home office, whether I've got that open office plan, no matter what I need to outfit and Teams enable that space, we've got a device that fits that category and can actually make sure that with the Teams certified devices, you and your users will have a pleasant Teams experience. Again, we want to make sure that everybody understands the idea of certified versus works with. We want to make sure that our certified devices are the ones that you're going for. You can browse the device showcase. You can go through everything that's there. You can look and you can actually shop. And not only with the cost, not only does it not have to be upfront, you can actually do these on a month-to-month as a service device if you wanted to as well, right through the device showcase. Making sure that you have options at your disposal is really what we're here for, to sort of show you and help you understand. There's not a one-size-fits-all. Flexibility is key to everything that we're doing. And we want to make sure that you're ready for the hybrid work. So we've got a whole bunch of different things that we can sort of help you in collateral and help you understand exactly not only how Microsoft is doing it, but how others are doing it as well. Making sure that you're using certified devices for all of your users is an important part of what I want everybody to come out from. And the resources that we have here, Sarah, we've got a whole bunch of these. I know that you and your team will make sure that all these are available. I'm going to hand it back to you because I think we're at that point where there's some other things to go through. But I'm going to stay here because I know we're coming back for Q&A afterwards as well.
We sure are. Yeah. So on that note, folks, we're going to just do one little tiny thing here before we get to Q&A. So think about some questions that you might like to ask Jimmy and the SMEs that we've got on the line today about devices, about what Jimmy talked about today and all the great information that he shared. In the meanwhile, I'm going to have my friend Martin just turn on his camera and come on very briefly. Microsoft is very, very committed to supporting you in the investment that you've made in your devices. And we talked about phone last week as well, but in just in the investment that you've made in the commitment that you've made to us, and we want to reciprocate. So Martin's here just to talk very briefly about Fast Track and how they can support you in getting your devices deployed and your rooms deployed. So Martin, if you could just take control, I'm not going to take control. So if you can move through the slides that you want to share today, talk about what Fast Track can do and support, that would be great. And then we'll dive right back into the Q&A. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thanks for having me for this conversation. You know, going through the polls that we did previously, it's interesting that especially in, you know, what are your biggest concerns of deploying Teams Room? The two biggest things that I think were almost neck and neck for the longest point for you know, what would be the hardest to deploy would be cost, and the deployment strategy is too complicated. And what's interesting is you have a resource right now that is available to you for free at no additional cost that can help you with both of those points. My name is Martin. I'm from the Microsoft Fast Track Center. We'll talk a little bit more about Fast Track later in the week, but today I just kind of want to introduce this concept to you that you have a resource that is there to help you deploy Teams Room at scale. One of the other polls asks, you know, what would be kind of like the best way to start your option or start your journey, and I think that the overwhelming response was a free trial. Fast Track is there to help you do all of the onboarding, all the initial configurations, and make a trial or do a pilot project for Teams Room specifically. Talking a little bit about what Fast Track is, we are a resource center that helps with cloud onboarding. We do pretty much everything in the M365 space, including Teams Rooms, Teams Phone. Whether you are ready to deploy Teams Rooms today, you already have like a robust Teams infrastructure, or maybe you do need a little bit of help understanding, you know, what exactly it is, you know, for that value prop for Teams, and you're still using things like like Slack or Google or things like that, and you need help deploying just Teams itself, Fast Track's there. And like I said, it's a no additional cost feature that's already available to you. As long as you have M365 licenses, you have access to the Microsoft Fast Track Center. We are a group of engineers and experts that help deploy each of these products. So essentially you come to us and we'll talk about your environment, kind of like the best way to like approach onboarding, whether it's Teams or Teams Room, or maybe it's the Teams phone portion that you're looking at. And then we're actually there with you over the shoulder and guidance to actually do the deployment with you. So that way, you know, it's your environment, you're doing the clicking, but you have a Microsoft resource, an expert engineer over your shoulder, making sure that your environment is in a ready to go state, and that all pieces, whether it's a trial or a pilot or a full scale deployment, that it's there and it's done at no additional cost. That's kind of the best thing. I'll talk a little bit more about the Fast Track Center again later on in the week, but if you've already done Fast Track before and maybe haven't been back in a while, we've added so many new features, so many new conversations, and Teams Rooms is probably the biggest one that we're having with a lot of our clients right now. Again, as we figure out this space of shifting from, you know, the being home from COVID to now maybe it's a hybrid environment, or maybe it's a full return back to the office. There are things that we're still kind of like figuring out, and Fast Track is there. We're at the forefront working with clients exactly like you to help with that onboarding. And a part of that is Jimmy mentioned, is the human aspect. We also help with a lot of the adoption pieces. So if that is something that is concerned to you and your organization, you know, how do we launch this? How do we get this on its feet? Those are all conversations that Fast Track can help you with. Now you can see on your screen there's a form. You can either click the link or scan the QR code. Fast Track normally takes a little bit more to get engaged. There's some things you kind of got to fill out a little bit more at scale. We've kind of cleared that obstacle for you. Through this customer hub, Fast Track is partnered with. This is a quick and easy way to make sure that we have the appropriate resources reach out to you and get that Fast Track engagement going as soon as possible with as much obstacles eliminated. So if it's something that you want to get working on today, great. We can start moving on that. And if you have more questions about Fast Track, again, I'll talk a little bit more about in the week, but I'll also be in the chat answering questions. Sarah, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Sounds great. I'm going to take control too here. Thank you very much, Martin, for that. I love to see people take advantage of this benefit. The thing I love about it the best is that we're not trying to sell anything. There's no upsell. We're not like, would you like fries with that? This is already included with just by virtue of owning licenses. So great. Thanks very much, Martin, for your time. Really appreciate it. Let's move into Q&A. I'm going to stop the recording just for privacy purposes. So let me go ahead and do that.